Welcome to episode 5 of Vicious Whispers. Thank you guys so much for joining me. I'm excited about this episode. The short story is going to be Mutual Understanding, narrated by my good friend Donna Gonzalez, badass who I've trained with. But we'll get more into that later. But I was trying to think about, okay, why am I in such a good mood? A lot of cool shit going on. I'm about to finish Ain't No Messiah. That's always exciting to be at the end of a novel. Had a cool weekend with the family. And then I was like, do I really want to do a podcast? I was like, yeah, I do. I was like, because it's about fighting. I just got kind of pumped thinking about it. I was even in front of the mirror fucking pretending like I could fight. It's kind of sad, but it's true. That's kind of what made me realize. I was like, holy shit. I was like, yeah, just the idea of talking about fighting, visualizing fighting, has got me kind of pumped up and got me more energy. So that's kind of cool. So let's talk about fighting, and how this story is kind of a blend between my two sides. If you guys haven't read any of my work, it's not always easy to describe, but generally the word I go with is dark. Prior to Unlocking the Cage, which is my first nonfiction, everything I wrote was kind of had a little bit of darkness to it. Bright side, not so much, but there's death in it, there's action, there's suspense. 25 Perfect Days, sci-fi, dystopian, lots of death, darkness, Twisted Reunion, 28 short horror stories, definitely. Try Not to Die series, obviously, a lot of death in there as well. So there's always that element. And you guys, if you've been listening, I've played Somber Stroll. That's my the last 5 short stories I've released. Today's the 5th one of Mutual Understanding. But again, all relatively dark. Not anything too crazy. But I can't deny that element. I think this story is a perfect blend between my fiction and my nonfiction. Unlocking the Cage, exploring the motivations of MMA fighters. That is a project that I started 5.5 years ago. It was May 2012 I began. The Kindle book is out now on Amazon, and the hardcover is coming out next month. And a lot of people have the advanced copies out now too. Reading those and waiting for reader reviews. I could definitely use more of those. Other reviews are great. Later I'll read the Midwest book review. It's the latest to come in saying, yeah, you should check it out. But before we get into unlocking and the short story, I mentioned Ain't No Messiah. Quick update on that. Man, it is almost done. This is book 1 in a 5-book series. I started a long time ago, had to put it down for Unlocking the Cage, several other books, and but now that I've gone back to it, I've reworked it. I'm really digging it. 103,000 words right now. This last chapter is pretty awesome. It's not awesome yet, but I like how it's developing. So many things I didn't know took place. Items that I didn't know were in the room are now in the room, and now I have to go back and change some other stuff, but it's all quick little stuff. My daughter was up late on Saturday and came downstairs and caught me in a moment where I was just super excited. I'd spent almost all night long writing, and I was telling her, I was like, yeah, all day, all I've been doing is thinking about death and how the best way to kill these people and who should die and when they should die and are they going to suffer first, and just playing all these. I know where the location is. I know the players involved, but I don't know where they're located. I don't know where the gun is. I don't know where they're going to get shot. I don't know. I got to do some research and see what like a bullet to the spine will do. I have to, but it was cool trying to figure that out. But all day long, that's what I was doing. I was thinking about death. And now the other scene was a sex scene. Little spoiler alert. But who knows if it actually stays. I'm pretty sure it is, especially after I spent this much time on it. Hopefully the editor digs it. According to my penis, the scene wasn't half bad. But he's been known to lie. So who knows? But I'm digging where it's gone so far. But all the week prior to that, I was thinking about, okay, would the wife allow this? So what happens? Joshua, the second coming of Christ, or the supposed second son. We don't know whether or not he's the Messiah or not. His dad says he is. Most of the people in the world believe it. Most famous person in the world. Anyhow, he is going to film a commercial for a crucifix dildo. And he's scheduled to do it with a porn actress, and his wife decides that she wants to do it instead because she doesn't want to see him with this skanky horror, and she thinks she'd be better, and they really need to sell this. They're going to auction off these crucifix dildos that have Joshua's initials inscribed on them. So yeah, that was a scene I was working on. I was like, okay, is there penetration? Is there no penetration? How much? Is there, like, trying to figure out all the details. Also want to make it very emotional, very loving, which isn't easy. Oh, and I forgot, her brother, the wife's brother, is the one filming this commercial too. So it gets a little weird. The whole book does, but pumped about it. So yeah, that's one of the reasons why I was in such a good mood. That is just about done. I'm gonna have that shit finished up within the week. I have a couple days of work on it, and then on Monday, next Monday, I switch books. I go into the fantasy book that I am having tattooed on my back. Well, I'm not having the whole fucking book tattooed on my back. I'm having the cover of one of the books in the series tattooed on my back. Long ass process, but those tattoo sessions are cool because I'm actually writing and working on the book while I'm doing it. Although the last 3 sessions I've kind of cheated and I've worked on Ain't No Messiah. But that probably added some cool little elements to that book as well. Probably a lot of fucks. Like, god damn it. Fucking a lot more pain in that book because of those tattoo sessions. But he deserves it. Let's switch it up. Let's go to the Goodreads question of the day. All right, so today's Goodreads question is, it's part 2. Last week I answered, the Goodreads question was, where did you get your idea for your most recent book? Last week I talked about Ain't No Messiah, because that's the one I'm just finishing up. But my most recent book, that's about to come out in hardcover and that is out now on Kindle, is Unlocking the Cage. So where did I get the idea for that book? Before I discuss that, let me read you the Midwest, what is this? I'm going to read the Midwest book review to give you an idea of what the book is if you haven't already heard, plus to let you know what they think. Okay, alright, so this is from Diane Donovan, a senior reviewer from Midwest Book Review, and this is what she said about Unlocking the Cage. Author Mark Tullius was a cage fighter and boxer who gave up his career but never quite lost his passion for the sport. And Unlocking the Cage follows his journey as he sought to understand both his own attraction to blood and violence in the name of sporting and the experiences of other fighters. He spent 3 years traveling to over 100 gyms across the country, interviewing fighters in an effort to discover shared insights on why cage fighting is so attractive, and so his survey of MMA fighting's particular process and psychology offers more than a casual inspection of what fighters find compelling about this pastime. Whether the reader knows about and relates to cage fighting or not is irrelevant. Tullius offers all the background and specifics needed to understand not just the mechanics of the sport, but the minds of its players and observers. One might anticipate this story to involve a condemnation of MMA techniques, but one of its many surprises are insights into how fighters have evolved into and then beyond MMA. The journey between successful cage fighter and a peaceful life sans fighting, the personal goals that can be achieved through MMA, and the values that emerge from it, such as fairness in fighting that translate into life in general, are exposed and explored as Mark Tullius comes closer to understanding himself as well as his fellow cage fighters. The result is a surprisingly revealing read, recommended not just for enthusiasts of boxing, fighting, and MMA in particular, but especially for outsiders who abhor the idea of such a sport without really understanding its players. This audience will find their eyes opened about many things, including evolving values and maturity processes in life, and will discover Unlocking the Cage also unlocks preconceived notions about a little understood sport. Yeah, so thank you, Diane, for that review. That's awesome. Hopefully that kind of explains to you what the book is about. Yeah, 100 gyms, 340 fighters interviewed, plus a ton of coaches and other people, parents, even kids. I talked with all kinds of people. And in 23 states. The original idea was to hit every state, and then I realized that was going to cost a lot of money, and it was going to be, there were a lot of states that just wouldn't be worth it. Although there were some states that I only talked with one or two guys, and it was awesome. Vermont was one of those. Tom Murphy, who's in the book, and two other guys that I had great interviews with that didn't make it into the book. But yeah, the whole process, it was cool. But the question is, where did this idea come from? The original idea came from, it wasn't for a book. It was actually for, I just wanted to do a survey. It was when I was fighting in I think it was 98 or 99. And something I always like to clarify is, I wasn't a good fighter. It's one of the reasons I wasn't even going to write this book, because I was unsuccessful at fighting. I felt like I didn't deserve to write it, or I don't know, or I wasn't the right person. But the more we went along, I realized it didn't really matter. I could relate to the fighters. I knew what it felt like to lose. I knew what it felt like to win. I knew what it felt like to train. And going through the process again taught me a lot. Everyone would always ask me why I was doing it. My parents couldn't understand why I was fighting. And I really didn't know myself. I was always a guy that was generally breaking up fights. I was doing tons of bouncing at the time. This is right after I graduated from college. But yeah, could never understand why I was doing it. But I wanted to know, I think the original idea for the study was when I was going to these underground fights, I was going to pass out flyers with a bunch of questions for the fighters and for the people that were there, the fans, like why were they watching it? And I just never got around to it. But that I always wanted to know, what was the interest? Why were we doing it? Because back then it was, fuck man, you get a flyer for this thing that wasn't, I don't even know if they were legal, and you would show up and they would just match you up. Yeah, so that's where that interest came from. And then I forgot about it as time went on. But I was watching fights with a friend, something I really wasn't doing much of. This is when I'm 39 years old, 6 years ago, and people are asking me, sometimes friends' wives would be like, "Oh, I can't believe you used to do that. You're so nice." And I'm the guy that's out playing with the kids while they're all watching fighting. And I realized I didn't know if it was regret or whatever else, or of not being a good fighter. Wasn't sure what it was that why I wasn't enjoying fighting anymore. But I viewed it more as just violence. And it was something I don't know. I didn't really care to see it. I didn't care to see guys getting hurt, and I hated watching it with people that had no ability to fight themselves, but could tell the guys on the screen what to do. And the ones that just wanted fucking blood and that had no idea what these fighters were going through. So yeah, I didn't know why I had fought. I couldn't answer that question. It was bothering me, and I decided, fuck, I gotta find out. If I'm ever gonna find out, I gotta do it now. And a big drive too was my daughter at the time. I was wondering whether or not it was okay for her to, I wasn't sure whether or not we should put her into any kind of martial art. I wasn't sure how that affects kids, if it would be a bad thing, a good thing. But she was at that point, she was, I believe 4 years old, and she was starting to punch and kick and enjoy doing those things at home with me. And I was like, oh shit, am I going, is she going to go down the same path I did? Why did I fight? Is she going to fight? And it was something that I definitely didn't want for her. So that's when I said, fuck it. I was like, let's do it. My wife was behind it. She thought it'd be good for me. And I tested the waters I did some training in California and realized I was completely in terrible shape. Probably like 245, 255. I'm 6'2". And I hadn't done shit like in 8 years since I blew my Achilles tendon. and just old, lots of back injuries. But I jumped back into it, tried to train a little bit, and then I did a little test in the East Coast. I decided to start in Rhode Island. Did a reading at my alma mater, Brown University, for my first fiction, Brightside. So that was kind of cool. And then I started going to different gyms, trying to work out with them, even competed and busted my ribs. But on that first little journey, it was 17 days, I think 50 fighters or 50 interviews, and it was awesome. And I watched a fight too, Cage Titans in Massachusetts. And it convinced me that it was something that I wanted to do. I wanted to spend the time doing this project. I didn't know exactly what it was going to end up being or how long it was going to take, but it was very cool. And we'll talk about some of those cool things after the short story. But yeah, that is where the idea for Unlocking the Cage came from. But yeah, so that is Unlocking the Cage. If you guys do enjoy MMA, if you do want to know what the hell's wrong with me, you can pick that shit up on Amazon. I need to check with T Quone to see when that narration will be, when he's done narrating it, and the audiobook will be out. But once it is, I will let you guys know. But for now, let's go ahead and jump into the short story. Like I mentioned, I don't want to give away too much, but it involves a fight, a man and a woman. Should be interesting. Alright guys, check this shit out. This is from off of the Somber Stroll audiobook, which you could pick up on Amazon or wherever. And if you guys have listened to this and the other short stories, the last 4 episodes, be sure to leave a review. That would be fucking awesome. Somber Stroll doesn't have very many reviews yet. I think I might only have 1. Maybe for audiobooks it has more. But yeah, doesn't matter that you didn't buy it. You can still leave the review and it'd still be super helpful. But this is Mutual Understanding, narrated by Donna Gonzalez.
Mutual Understanding. The concrete circle lies between here and the little kids' playground. 3 flat benches and a patch of grass separating them. The climbing structure straight ahead, the infectious laughter drawing my attention. But I've seen how quickly the joyous peals can twist into terror. The soft, cushy ground not absorbing the fall. Parents sprinting at me in a 40-yard dash, screaming for ice, telling me to hurry, do something. Looking at me like I'm the one that told their kid to go play up there. Like I had something to do with constructing it. That playground's been here since before me. All we own are the bleachers and everything in this shack, which cost plenty. That doesn't even include the rent we pay the city. Karen reminds us every single day, jumping on either Ryan or me the moment we walk through the door, asking us how much we sold, just so she can tell us it didn't come close to covering the cost of our wages. We've been open for business for 4 months, and things aren't panning out the way Ryan had predicted. Dad's worried we'll have to shut down before summer. School ended a little over an hour ago, but most kids are probably staying inside to keep warm. If I'm lucky, I'll sell a couple dozen waters and maybe a hot chocolate or 2. But even with the little rush that always follows baseball practice, none of that will make a dent in what we're down. Last person to buy anything was that girl in the green yoga pants. She's pushing that chubby toddler in the swing one-handed so she can scroll through her phone. The kid doesn't mind the lack of attention, a giant grin plastered on his face, the wind whipping through his curls. She looks a few years older than me. Maybe college, so I'm guessing babysitter, not mother. But either way, at least she brought him. Karen has never come here with Derek, and we live across the street. Mom loved this park. The birds, the trees, the laughter, everything about it. We were here every day of the year, rain or shine, and Mom took photos to prove it. Most of them are just me, but some with her in them too on the days Dad joined us. Her favorite was when I was 4, standing on that middle bench, whistling to the blue jay on my shoulder. My favorite is when I was 8 and we were cuddled on the grass, a week or 2 before the chemo. Lots of photos were captured in this circle, sporting roller skates and protective gear in the winter, a swimsuit for all of summer. The 6-foot-high pole in the center hasn't sprayed water for the last 5 years. There used to be a sign that read, "No riding toys, no running." It might as well have said, "Go ahead and fall off the monkey bars, but don't you dare trip on the concrete." The new sign is ours. Something Dad special ordered. 4 words that cost $100. Reserved for mutual understanding. A couple of kids are clomping up and down the bleachers to the right of the circle. Freddie, the homeless guy who sleeps in our shack most nights, is bundled up in his sleeping bag beneath the bleachers to the left. Most of the mothers and nannies are gathered around the benches with their backs to me. The only person facing the shack is the bald guy on the front bench. Every Tuesday and Thursday, he visits with his preschool daughter, a tiny blonde girl with glasses. I've never really seen him play with her. Usually he just hands her a tablet and she's glued to the device while he scopes out the area. The shack often one of his main interests. The squeal of tires makes everyone turn as a sporty black car swerves onto Cherry, crossing the median, headed straight for the playground. The driver whips the car around and screeches to a halt against the curb, parked the wrong way. Another squeal, this time a filthy 4x4 truck. The first driver, clad in all black, gets out and walks straight through the playground, headed right for me. The truck slams on its brakes, but not in time, its metal bumper shattering the car's taillights. The driver doesn't react, just keeps walking toward me. With the hoodie on, I can't tell it's a female until she reaches the concrete circle. The guy who jumped down from the truck has on jeans and a bright red jersey. He slams his door and storms through the playground. Surrounded by children, nearly every one of them staring, the guy shouts, "Where the fuck do you think you're going?" The woman, pretty and probably late 20s, doesn't pay him any mind as she approaches the counter with a smile. The truck driver pauses between 2 of the benches, his wide shoulders making me think he might still play football. "I'm talking to you, you little faggot!" She shrugs off the hood and shakes out the brown hair that just brushes her shoulders. From across the circle, he shouts, "Oh, so because you're a chick, you get away with whatever you want?" I offer to call the cops, but she says no. She's cool and collected, but too much, like maybe she's in shock. Makeup covers most of the black eye, but not her oddly curved nose or the faded scar on her forehead. I figure she had her own phone, but hold up mine just in case. "Do you want me to call?" "Nope, just a bottle of water, please." The big guy wasn't going away. "Come on, you were so tough earlier. You can't even look at me." The woman pulls something from her wallet. Nodding at her face and keeping my voice down, I ask, "Did he do that to you?" She shakes her head. "I don't even know this guy." He forces a laugh. What are you doing? You gonna call the cops? Go for it, you little fucking liar." Aiming some hate my way, he says, "What's that little cunt telling you?" Oh, the water. I disappear beneath the counter, think of grabbing my pepper spray from my purse, but just come up with her bottle. The woman pays with a 20, but when I hand her back 3 5s, she won't take them. She flashes a sly smile and whispers, "Put it on me." "I'm sorry, I don't." The woman steps to the side and slides her yellow card into the mutual machine. A series of loud whoops blare from above as the yellow strobe light on the roof is activated. The computer reads, Sarah Torres, 32, 5'8", 135, B. Everything seems in slow motion. The guy yells something I can't hear with my hands over my ears. The whooping stops after 5 seconds. The first 2 rows of both bleachers nearly full. A line of women face me from the side of the benches, some standing on top, the children beside them. I drop the cash on the counter and call Dad. He answers on the second ring, asks if everything's okay. The bald guy comes up to the counter, asking the woman something about training. Into the phone, I say, "Yeah, so far, someone's thrown down their card." It sounds like Dad is trying not to get too excited. "Just one?" "Yeah, a lady." The guy in the jersey is at the far end of the circle talking on the phone, waving off the group of skateboarders gathering round. "Make sure everything's recording. I'll check the feed on my end. Remember, 5 minutes if they agree." Reaching up, I hit the red record and then the blue streaming buttons. "It's on. Dad, can you find Ryan? There are a lot of people here." Sure. I'll get him down there right away," Dad promised. "Don't worry, honey. I'm patched in and everything looks great.
I'll open up the boards as soon as we get confirmation.
I don't want to ruin his excitement, but say, if she challenged a guy?
Well, it doesn't look like he's going anywhere. Must be game. Go, honey, handle business. You got this.
As I hang up, Sarah turns to the guy.
How long are you going to make these good people wait? I'm not going against a girl.
I'm not a girl.
This is fucking ridiculous.
He turns and starts toward the benches, a wall of people blocking his path. Now it's Sarah's turn to yell, her voice still under control.
Figured you for chicken shit.
Spreading her arms, she presents him to the crowd.
This, boys and girls, is a bona fide coward.
He spins around and steps into the circle.
Fine. You want to do this? Let's do this.
Sarah moves to the other side of the counter and gestures to the machine.
Then how about you stop blabbering and insert your card?
He pulls out his wallet and rifles through it.
I don't even know if I have it with me.
Without the slightest hesitation, Sarah points at me and says,
She can sell you a replacement. Hell, I'll even pay for it.
He locks eyes with Sarah.
You're nuts. I'm not fighting some psycho bitch.
The baseball team joins the crowd. And now, no less than 24 cameras are catching every angle. Sarah says,
Go ahead and let the coward leave. But make sure you get a good look at his license plate. I'll have to report him for the hit and run.
He doesn't say a word, just heads straight for the machine and shoves in his yellow card. Nothing. I walk over and glance at it. It's upside down. The crowd bursts into laughter, calls him dumb shit, moron, a dozen different names. His cheeks match his shirt by the time he gets it right. Another set of whoops signaling a mutual understanding. Gerald Marin, 25, 6'1", 210A.
This is so stupid,
he says, probably more to himself than me.
I don't want to fight some girl.
Pointing to the timer counting down on the wall, you still have time to cancel. From just a few feet away, Sarah snickers.
You mean chicken out?
Gerald won't look at her, just calls her a psycho bitch. She says,
Yep, must be true if you keep saying it.
The 60-second cooling off period is almost over. I give them one last chance to back out, then press the button that posts all the details to the Shack's billboard. The bald dad squeezes in front of Gerald so he can be first to place his bet. At least a dozen others line up behind him to use the machine. The rest of the counter is filled, people calling out orders, not bothering with a line. Sarah takes the right bleachers as her side. The crowd cheers for her, giving her space to take off her sweatshirt. Clad in all black except for the white swoosh of her Nikes, Sarah bends down and says something to the little girl with glasses sitting in the front row. The girl nods and Sarah lays her sweatshirt across the girl's lap. Gerald looks over the mob and catches my eye.
What did she say?
It was taking all I had to get everyone's order and change right. I simply shake my head. The back door unlocks and Ryan walks in, breathing heavily.
Holy shillies.
He takes it all in.
This is for real. Cherry is stopped with cars.
Gerald raises his voice.
What did she tell you?
Ryan says,
Hey man, we got a job to do.
Only 19, but never one to be intimidated, Ryan nods at the left bleachers.
So do you.
Gerald backs off, and Ryan and I continue to take care of the customers. With 2 minutes still left on the timer, everyone is back in their places. Snacks torn open, popcorn spilling. Ryan wraps me up in a huge hug.
Oh, I can't wait to rub this in Karen's bitchy little face.
10,000 just for hosting this. Gerald stands outside the circle, cracking his knuckles and moving his head side to side like he's checking for a clunking sound. Sarah is inside the circle doing slow, deep squats, her eyes trained on Gerald the entire time. I tell Ryan, I don't think I want to watch. He has both hands on the counter, beaming as he soaks in the scene he'd dreamed of.
Yeah, of course. Why don't you get the ice and bandages ready?
Sarah rolls her neck in every direction while pumping her arms back and forth across her chest. Gerald shakes his legs out and keeps on knuckle cracking. Sarah raises her right hand overhead and shows us her red card. Staring at Gerald but speaking to everyone, she says,
Let's make this more interesting.
The crowd roars, stomping their feet, the bleachers shaking. Gerald doesn't say a word, his face hard to read.
Sarah practically bounces over to the machine and replaces her yellow card with the red one. She returns to the bleachers to the sound of 3 blasts of the air horn. "You're insane," Gerald says. "I'm not doing this." The teenagers in the swelling crowd grow hostile, tearing into him with names none of the children need to hear. "Fuck you! Fuck all of you!" The crowd does not relent with their calls of cowardice. Sarah says, "Okay, let's change that billboard. Make the odds on whether this little pussy leaves." I got 50 that says he splits. Yellow tail between his shaved legs. "Fine! You guys want it? I'll give it to you." Gerald stomps over and gets out his red card. "You saw she started this," he says to me. "She's begging for it." I don't say a word, just watch him slide his card into the reader. I cover my ears for 3 more blasts, watching the red strobe light activate and reflect off the concrete. Another wave of people is lined up for the machine. Gerald shucks off his jersey, a white tank top underneath, tattoos on each swollen arm. Sarah walks over to me, appearing confident, not considering backing down. She hands me her wallet. "There's just about $500 in here, 13-to-1 odds. Put it all on me and we'll split it." Dad would have pointed out that half of nothing is nothing, but that's all I have to lose. Plus, I don't want to ruin the confidence Sarah has built up. I ask Sarah if she's sure, and she nods, slipping in a red mouthpiece and heading back to her spot. Ryan shakes my shoulder. "Hey, what are you waiting for?" He grabs the money and runs around to get in line for the machine. The bet placed, he hands me the slip with less than 20 seconds left on the clock. There isn't a cloud in the sky, but the air feels electric, like it's about to storm. Nearly everyone is on their feet, the noise louder than any game I've ever been to. "I'm gonna stay right here," Ryan tells me. He leans over the counter and presses the button to lower the pole, the sign sliding down through the drain. "Elise, you don't need to see this." I want to agree, to face the back wall, but just like everyone else, I'm drawn to the circle. "All betting is now closed," Ryan shouts. "Combatants, take your places." Gerald's work boots clunk onto the concrete, his fists by his sides. Sarah turns to the little girl in glasses and gives her an almost imperceptible nod. The girl smiles at Sarah and then buries her face in the sweatshirt. Sarah bends over and reties her shoes, tucking in the strings. She enters the circle and Ryan gives me the nod to blow the last air horn. Gerald stays right where he is. Sarah advances, crouched down like she's in a martial arts movie. I don't watch MMA as much as Ryan, but from the way she glides like a snake sizing up prey, even I can tell she's trained. Only problem is, Gerald's being 1.5 times her size. The ridiculousness of this woman closing in on the much heftier man becomes a little less ridiculous with each measured step. Gerald brings his fist to his chin and stands his ground, looking like he might try and tackle her. The crowd quiets as Sarah passes the center of the circle. She jumps in and out of his striking distance, but Gerald never bites. Sarah's 3rd time in, she steps diagonally to the left, blasts the inside of his knee with a vicious kick, knocking his leg out wide, the crowd roaring approval. Gerald tries to regain his balance, but Sarah's jab cross connects with his nose. She follows with a hook, but Gerald drops his chin, her fist glancing off the top of his head. Sarah jumps back, clutching her hand. Gerald leaps in and just misses with a haymaker. Sarah shoots a sidekick directly to his kneecap. Gerald cries out, limps after her. "You fucking cheater!" Sarah smiles around her mouthpiece and does it again, her heel slamming into the front of his knee. Gerald grimaces as he puts that leg behind him out of her reach, but Sarah closes the distance, lifts his left ankle and pushes his chest. Gerald spins his arms to brace for the landing, barely stops the back of his head from bouncing off the concrete. Sarah's still standing, crouched over him, her left foot crushing his crotch, her arms trapping his ankle to her side. She falls to that side and lands on the shoulder, both her legs keeping Gerald's leg pinned. With a deep grip around his ankle and the boot trapped behind her armpit, Sarah presses her belly to the concrete and arches her back. Gerald yelps, sits up as far as he can and slams his fist into Sarah's shin. Sarah shifts her hips and switches her legs so her outside leg is over his. He tries wrenching her off, but she has it figure forward with her bottom leg. With his leg bent at that odd angle and his foot trapped on her hip, Gerald can't do much. He throws a backhand, but she ducks under it, his heel caught in the crook of her elbow as she takes it with the leverage of her whole torso all the way onto her far shoulder. I tell myself that pop was just his jeans tearing, but the scream says it was probably a ligament. Gerald grabs hold of Sarah's arm and pulls himself on top of her, pinning her top leg down. His left hand finds her throat and squeezes. Sarah knocks off the choking hand, but doesn't see the punch that cracks her upside the head. There's blood beneath her. She keeps moving, deflecting the next 2 punches off her forearm. Sarah sits up and hugs Gerald close, bringing them back down. The moment his hands hit the concrete, Sarah brings her shin high on his back, over his shoulder and under his chin. Ryan shouts, "Oh, fuck! An omoplata!" Sarah sits up and wraps her arms around Gerald's neck. Gerald strains to get away, like a dog on a leash, his face smashed into the concrete, his arm riding further up his back. He bursts forward and breaks Sarah's grip, drags her underneath him, and drops all his weight. Sarah grunts loudly, but never stops scrambling. Getting her feet on his hips and then locking her legs behind his back, Gerald reaches back to throw a right hand and Sarah launches her body at his left arm that's braced on the ground. They start to tip over, but Gerald slams his hand back to the concrete. Sarah ducks beneath his armpit, sliding around to his back. Now Sarah has a foot wrapped around the front of each of Gerald's legs and fought to get an arm around his throat. Gerald tucks his chin and pushes off with his feet, throwing them into the middle of the circle, Sarah's head banging off the drain. Keeping his weight pushing down on her chest, Gerald throws a blind punch over his shoulder, a meaty thud that smacks Sarah square in the mouth. The sound of sirens grows louder than the crowd, but doesn't silence them. The sirens come closer and closer as Sarah hides her head from the punches, Gerald's knuckles bloody from the misses that connect with the concrete. Everyone is so absorbed with the fight, I'm the only one that notices the police cruiser tearing through the parking lot and slam on its brakes just feet from the back of the bleachers. The cop burst out of the car, pistols drawn, yelling at everyone to clear out of his way as he pushes toward the circle. Sarah's face is a red smear and she's flat on her back, but looks safe. Her legs wrapped around Gerald's neck and right arm, his left in no position to do any damage. Gerald's face is purple when the cop bursts through the crowd and lunges into the circle. Gun aimed at Sarah's head, the cop shouts, "Release him! Now!" The crowd boos, but Ryan holds up his hand to quiet them. Pointing at the 2 red cards in the reader, Ryan addresses the officer. He agreed to an advanced mutual understanding. Those 2 are the only ones who can stop it. The cop doesn't take his eyes off Sarah. "I said now!" Sarah glances at the cop, but can't seem to take in what he's saying. Ryan urges her. "Go on, he can't stop this." Ryan cites the lot of the cop, swears they'll make a citizen's arrest and sue if the city continues to interfere. The officer lowers his gun, but only a bit. "That man's a police officer." Sarah takes a deep breath through her nose as blood trickles from her bottom lip that's torn in 2. Speaking around her mouthpiece, she says, "Not in here!" Gerald takes advantage of the distraction and drops to his side, freeing space around his neck. Instead of fighting to get back under him, Sarah swivels on top, her legs still triangling his head and arm. In complete control, Sarah sits back on his chest, a steady stream of her blood falling on the forearm that tries to hide his face. The cop yells at me to do something, to shut it all down, but Ryan says that isn't going to happen. "This is all on video, and you're trespassing. Get out of the circle." Sarah spit out her mouthpiece and hits Gerald's cheek. "Or stay there and you can go next." Gerald peeks from around his forearm and whispers, "Please." Sarah shakes her head and slams her elbow down on his forearm. The crowd roars. She does it again and again. An explosion of applause accompanies each strike. It looks like his forearm breaks on the 6th shot. I stop watching after 2 more, but I hear the thuds keep coming, becoming louder. The cheers die down.
Alright guys, we are back. hopefully you guys enjoyed that one. I had a lot of fun writing it. I had help from some friends too, that helped with some of the jiu-jitsu. I tried to make it as realistic as possible. Hopefully you guys got that. I think a lot of people would, especially males, would, well, probably a lot of females too, would think that there is no fucking way that a smaller female or any female is going to beat a man in a fight. But that is completely, no, that shit is not true. A well-trained female would beat a untrained male. I would say, like, there's all kinds of factors and shit like that, but I would go with the trained female. I think the majority of people, majority of males, definitely think they are fucking way tougher than they actually are. I'm incredibly guilty of that as well. I don't know what it is, but we all think we could fucking fight when we can't. You have the little scenario going through your head where you come out victorious, even though you've never spent any time throwing a real punch. Maybe you've never even learned how to kick. Who knows what it is? You don't know how to wrestle. You have zero jiu-jitsu knowledge. The person that has the training is fucking gonna win. I wanted to make this as realistic as possible. I had some friends that helped me, female friends that helped me with the jiu-jitsu. It's funny, when I finished the scene, I actually read this one to my wife and daughter, and they were both visualizing the moves and trying to figure out whether or not the moves would work against a bigger opponent. So yeah, we try to make this as realistic as possible. I think this is what could definitely go down. The female is, if I knew the background of both of these individuals, I would put money on the female. I'd be a little bit worried maybe the male would get a lucky shot and knock her out or something like that. But no, I'm going with the female. Like I mentioned before this, about this kind of being a blend between the two worlds, between my fiction and nonfiction, this story would not have been possible, or I don't think it would have been nearly as good if I hadn't found jiu-jitsu, 10th Planet Jiu-Jitsu. That's where I decided to start training. It was after I'd been going around the country getting my ass beat by fucking everybody. Like, honestly, I think I doubt there's anyone in the country that was submitted by more people than I was in this year and a half or 2 years, where I was going training constantly. Because not only was I getting beat by the pros, obviously, but I would do, once I was able to get through the warm-ups, I started doing like beginner classes and advanced classes, and fucking everybody I go roll with in those classes was killing me as well. And so even though I had been a blue belt prior to stopping fighting, which was like 2004, when I decided to start training at 10th Planet, I threw that shit away and I just went back to white belt. And it was kind of crazy because I'm not the kind of guy that was going to pay to train somewhere and put the time in. Drive all the way to fucking LA. I was driving to downtown LA like maybe only twice a week, or I'd be going to different gyms as well. I was trying to train as often as possible. I was taking it seriously. I wanted to learn, and but it was awesome. It gave me a lot. Right now I am at purple belt. Fucking sucks that I have not been able to train in the last, I think it's been 8 months. Let me see. My last competition was in, it was like in March, but that's when I was already starting to have neck issues. Luckily that competition didn't mess me up at all. I don't think it didn't make my neck any worse, but every time I've tried to return to training, I have not been able to. If you guys want to see me in action, I actually put up a match where I lost, but I lost by fucking 2 points because of a bullshit little takedown. But the reason I put it up is because at the time I was 44 years old, and I wanted to show that I was never flexible before. I'm not that flexible now, but it's something I've worked on to become better at jiu-jitsu. And it shows me just trying my rubber guard, and I almost submit the guy, and I was able to control him. So if nothing else, this shows that an old dude can be competitive. I didn't win, I lost on points, like I said, but I was competitive against a younger and heavier guy. So that's up there, me being a fucking narcissist. But yeah, check that shit on my YouTube channel. The other thing that's kind of cool, if you are an MMA fan, go back. I got about 200 or more videos up of the fighters, like Dominic Cruz, Paige Van Zant, tons of these guys, and just talking about why they fight. Some of them I thought were tons of them I thought were awesome. All these interviews inspired me. Lots of these people I now call my friends. Those are all up on my YouTube channel. Everything's linked to marktullius.com. If you just type in Tullius, I'm sure it will come up, Tullius. But yeah, so I've had getting back into jiu-jitsu has been awesome. I've probably lost more competitions than I won. But again, I've gotten a ton from it. I want to return too. I'm hoping I'm going to put my back tattoo on hold in December, and I'm going to give myself 5 weeks to train for the Gracie, I think it's Nationals, I'm not sure what it is, but a competition in LA. So, and I'm cutting weight for that. So I want to try to compete at a light heavyweight or whatever below 205 is. So that is my goal. I think my wife is going to do it as well. And my daughter, who is 9 years old, I don't know if she's going to do it, but she's just coming off a huge, she just won gold. She had 2 submissions in her matches and looked dominant, and just to see her composure, to see that she wanted to win. She told us in the morning that she wanted to win. Usually it's, she'll talk about, okay, this time I'm going to try to be aggressive, or I'm going to try to go for a submission, or I'm going to try, which has been great. But this time she just told us on her own. She's like, no, she's like, I want to win. And she went out and did it. So that was very cool to see. I've never seen her so proud of herself. But that's what's cool. I've seen how much, so through Unlocking the Cage, by going around the country, by interviewing all these fighters, by paying attention and talking with the coaches about, okay, what does martial arts give to kids? What have you seen? I interviewed parents. I would talk to as many parents as I could. Talk to lots of the kids too. And I realized more than anything that fucking martial arts for children is awesome. It doesn't have to be jiu-jitsu. That's what I enjoy. That's what my daughter's doing. And my wife, she's training as well. But if nothing else, that's what I'm hoping people get from Unlocking the Cage. I'm hoping they're getting that. Yeah, fucking martial arts, it doesn't matter what age, but the earlier you can start, the better. I had so many fighters tell me they could not imagine how much their life would have changed if they had gotten into martial arts earlier. Not because they wanted to be a better fighter, and they were thinking of it in that aspect, but because it would have helped them through so much shit in life. It gives people so much. I've seen what it's done for my wife. I believe she's been training 2 years. She's about to get her blue belt. But her knowledge is fucking awesome. But the other thing I've seen with her is just how much it's helped her confidence, body image. She can handle herself now. I would pay money. I think she would beat a guy, an untrained guy. Not on her feet, but she knows, she's got some awesome takedowns, and I've seen her compete and prove shit to herself, going against much bigger, younger women that were training to be MMA fighters, and holding her own. So I was like, that's awesome for an older woman to be able to do that. Donna Gonzalez, the woman that just narrated the story, actually one of her interviews is on, I interviewed her as well a couple years ago, so her interview's on my YouTube channel. But she is going to be competing, I think it's at the On It Invitational very soon, so I'm pumped about that. She just taught a class for us at the 10th Planet Youth Center, and I plan on interviewing her again. I want to sit down with her for a really long interview about getting into female empowerment, because that's what she is all about. That's why she loves martial arts. That's why she does her women's self-defense program. I think that's going to be an awesome interview. Not sure when that is, but we'll be doing that one soon. Because there was something, one of the things that this story brought up for me is that I have never experienced what a female has gone through. Just recently, there was that Me Too campaign or whatever it was, where everyone was talking about sexual harassment and the feeling of just fear. I can never, as a bigger guy who's always, whether it was a false confidence for just thinking I was tough because I'm a big, heavy guy and strong, or if it was because I finally have some ability to fight. I don't know. I've never had that fear of walking down the street and wondering if the person behind me is going to try something, or I've always had maybe that expectation and been kind of ready for it and like, okay, maybe even welcoming, but I've never. I can only imagine what a female would be feeling day to day, and how uncomfortable they can be in all these different situations, and how once they have the martial arts to give them that confidence, like that's amazing. That alone, I could only imagine what that would do for someone. So that's why I'm a big proponent of that shit. Oh, and for those of you that are MMA fans, and maybe don't appreciate jiu-jitsu or don't care for it that much or think it would be a little bit boring, you should definitely check out, and for those of you that are maybe into jiu-jitsu and not MMA, check out the Combat Jiu Jitsu Worlds. It's the bantamweights and lightweights. My buddy J.M. Holland is competing in it. We'll be rooting for him. Yeah, so it should be cool. It's jiu-jitsu with strikes on the ground. So it definitely changes the game. It's interesting to see how things are changing, how guys are approaching it. But my wife really wanted to go check it out. She's probably more into jiu-jitsu right now than I am because she can actually go and compete, and she can go and train. But she has the same neck injury that I'm dealing with. So hopefully that's not going to derail her like it did me. But yeah, so we're going to be checking that out. That's EBI Combat Jiu Jitsu Worlds, and that will be on, I think it's on UFC Fight Pass, so you guys can check it out on there. All the other EBIs are on there as well, so you should definitely check those out. I think the EBIs are a great way to see no-gi jiu-jitsu. You can see why I enjoy it, how fast it is, how talented these guys are. Yeah, it's awesome. Jiu-jitsu is the thing that kind of saved me from myself when I was going around the country, starting to get into training again. I started getting into sparring. I started wanting to fight again. And this is like at 42, 43 years old, fucking seriously considering taking a fight, which would have been ridiculous. There'd be absolutely no reason why. And then luckily a friend told me I should really be careful and start thinking about brain damage because I was getting the shit kicked out of me by guys 20 years my age. I mean, got demolished by Fabricio Verdum and Babalu and all these other guys. And yeah, just it wasn't a good thing. So I'm super glad that I found jiu-jitsu, that it enabled me to continue to be competitive and get that aggressiveness out and learn some really cool stuff and then pass it on to my family. So I'm fucking digging that. But yeah, check that shit out. EBI on UFC Fight Pass. So that goes into kind of, all right, so that's the fighting aspect of it. But another reason why I wrote this story, and where this idea came from, was I forget what state it was, but there was an article about a law that they were trying to pass for mutual combat. And I was thinking, well, yeah, it should be legal. You should be able to do this. So the mutual combat definition is a fight into which both parties enter willingly, or in which two persons, upon a sudden quarrel and in hot blood, mutually fight upon equal terms. Now, why shouldn't this be allowed? I'm guessing there probably are fucking some good reasons. But if the person had, let's say they both had medical insurance, or they both could pay for whatever injuries they sustained, or who knows. I'm sure there could be a way to figure it out. But should it be legal? Like, should people be able to solve their problems by fighting? Or should you just be able to fight if you want to? Maybe you just want to go and fight somebody that also wants to just go fight. I don't know. I think it boils down to, do we have control of our own bodies? Generally, I would say, you could do anything you want as long as it's not affecting someone else. But if this other person is down, then why not? You can play football and fucking run at full speed into someone else and trying to kill them. There's no problem with that. You could sign up for fucking war. You can be a police officer. You could take on the most deadliest jobs. But you can't agree to fight somebody. So, I don't know. I say go for it. I don't know. So, there's that. Should it be legal? Yeah, so in this story, it is. But another thing is, what would you do if challenged? And have you ever been in a fight? And have you ever been in a fight that you knew you were probably going to lose? I'm often surprised at how many people have not been in a fight. Not that I've been in a ton. I think I've been very good at avoiding fights, avoiding confrontation. I'm very non-confrontational, or that's the story I fucking like to believe. There have been times, you know what? I'll tell you the story. It was I was very disappointed in myself, but I actually challenged someone to a fight at a park, and it was shortly after writing this short story. So I think this story got in my head a little too much, and it had to do with some road rage and someone saying the wrong thing and flipping me off, and so I may have challenged them to a fight in a park, the exact same park right by my house where I envisioned this story taking place. So yeah, like I said, I wasn't proud of myself at all. I was disgusted with myself right after I did it. Luckily, they declined the fight, but I'm an idiot sometimes. So something I'm working on. It's probably because I hadn't been able to do jiu-jitsu for a while. And actually, you know what? That's not true. I just come from training. Maybe I was too pumped up. Who knows? But anyhow, boys and girls, do not, I repeat, do not invite anyone else to mutual combat, or do not engage in mutual combat with anyone else unless you're really good. And don't do it in a concrete circle like I had planned. That's a bad idea. I'd also be interested in knowing whether or not, like honestly, you don't have to tell me, but do you think you would win a fight against someone else? And what is your level of training? So why do you think you would win? Is it just because I think so many of us just like, yeah, I would win. I was like, I've watched fighting before. I watch boxing. I watch MMA. I kind of know what it is. It's like, man, if the other person knows something, you're probably gonna get destroyed. Yeah. So if you do think those things, I don't know. I think a good thing to a good way to see that in action is just type in bullies getting their ass kicked. And you'll see what guys that think that they're tough, what happens to them when they go against someone that actually has a little bit of training, looks a little weaker. On the next couple of episodes, I think we'll go a little bit more into MMA. Maybe I'll share a couple of the stories. We'll give I'll do a little rundown on Unlocking the Cage, some of the cool stuff that I got from it. I'm doing more and more interviews on podcasts about it. Had a really fun one on, I believe it's Combat Docket Radio, episode 11, with my buddy Kurt Chase Patrick. I'd interviewed him 5 years before. Hadn't talked to him since, but kept up with him, followed him a little bit on social media. So it was cool talking with him about the project. Got me pumped up again. So you can check that out. There's a bunch of other ones coming out. People supporting the book, which is awesome. But yeah, so next couple episodes we'll talk about Unlocking the Cage a little bit more. I'm not sure what we're going to be doing for fiction. Maybe I'll do some short fiction as well. Got to figure that shit out. In the meantime, I am going to... Oh yeah, and remember, you can also check out Unlocking, my other podcast. Episode 100 is up on that. The short story is 2020. Over there, I'm narrating my dystopian audiobook, 25 Perfect Days plus 5 more. Be sure, if you enjoy it, be sure to subscribe, tell your friends, help me spread it. Vicious Whispers is a new podcast. I don't do shit for marketing, so if you guys like it, please leave a review, tell a friend, help a homie out. Alright guys, thank you so much for listening. Hope you have an incredible week. Talk to you later. Peace.